Hello, and welcome to Self-Care is Sexy. My name is Chris, and I'll be your host. We're a weekly podcast that's here to generate and share self-care ideas with each other. Last week, I did a show all about asking for help. We talked about how difficult it is to ask for help. We went over some healthy ways to ask for help. And then we also talked about how self-care contributes to your ability to mindfully ask for help. If you missed that show or any of our previous episodes, you can check us out on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher, Podbean, iHeartRadio. We're on YouTube, and really anywhere you get your podcasts from. I want to give you a quick preview of what to expect from today's show. So today's show is kind of a bonus episode, and it's an accumulation of several self-care topics that were recently brought up. We, before pre-pandemic, we hosted a monthly brunch where we would just get together with our friends and some vegan food and talk about self-care and the difficulties we've been facing, some of the ideas, and just gave each other a safe place to talk about self-care and how we care for ourselves and how we get that permission, how we make time for ourselves and give each other the permission to put ourselves first. And so since the pandemic, we've not been able to do those in-person visits. And in lieu of that, we have some special Self-Care is Sexy seminars and boot camps. If you would like to be a part of any of these virtual events, you can find out all the information on our website. It's www.selfcareissexy.com. Or you can send me an email and I'll send you a link invite. It's a monthly virtual meeting where you'll get an opportunity to talk with other people about self-care, get some ideas, and create community. Okay, so first of all, happy Thanksgiving. If you are here in the States, I want to wish you and your family and the ones that you love a very happy Thanksgiving. And it's an unusual time and things are just a little wonky. I know for us, my family, we're not celebrating Thanksgiving this year. We are officially in a 2-week quarantine. So, and we can look at that as like a real negative change to our life, or we can really take a different perspective, change the way we're thinking about things, and see this as potentially a very positive experience and something we can learn from. Because I'm sure we're all bored to death and tired of our same old routines, if we even have a routine in place at this point, and we're getting a little itchy under the skin to get out and do something fun. Well, let me encourage you that no matter how uncomfortable it is right now to sit in this sucky quarantine situation that we all find ourselves in, we really do have to do this one uncomfortable thing for the better good. And that's a lot, that gives us a lot of opportunity to do some self-care. So today's show is kind of an accumulation of some of the thoughts, ideas, and conversations that came out of our most recent Self-Care is Sexy virtual gathering. And I kind of want to go all over the map. This is a bonus episode. It's a lot less structured than normal. If you are looking for tips, tricks, ideas, what works best, or resources, you may want to check out another podcast. For all of my new listeners out there, welcome to the show. My name is Chris. I'm your host. We have interviews, DIYs, we do special events, we have a boot camp coming up. There's all kinds of materials that you can plug yourself into if self-care is really a challenge for you. And today's episode is a special one. We're just going to go over some things that was discussed at our virtual meeting. So, one thing that really stood out to me after talking with a group of friends about the self-care is that if you feel like shit about yourself, if you're really down on yourself, you know, a pedicure or a new outfit or any of the ideas that I come up with and share with you about self-care, they aren't going to do jack shit for you. You're still going to feel like shit. Because it really is about the relationship that you have with yourself. Self-care is about having a relationship with yourself. And if your dominant thoughts and conversation with yourself is negative, then all the self-care in the world isn't going to matter until you fix that piece, until you change that piece. The self-care that we talk about on the show, the ideas, the, Zentangle, the yoga, the pedicures, all the different ideas and things that we try for self-care are just a means to get you to feel better about yourself, to have a better conversation with yourself. So it's kind of a long route around helping you to learn how to think better about yourself, to talk better about yourself, and to treat yourself better. And that's what self-care really does. And that kept coming up in our conversation over and over, that if your mental health about yourself was not in check, that a lot of this stuff isn't going to work for you. Your thinking has to change. And it's really important that when we're thinking about like, okay, that's kind of a tough conversation. Like my thinking has to change. That's kind of big, right? That's a big thing to kind of wrap our head around. So an easier way to get you to start working with this is to start asking yourself, why am I trying to avoid what I'm feeling? What am I doing to myself that's mean, that's potentially harmful? What are the things that I'm doing that send a negative message to myself? You have the power within you to solve any problem that you come up against, whether it's your relationship with yourself, your finances, your weight, whether it's, a new job that you're seeking or a relationship that you're really hungry for, whatever it is, you have the power to change that relationship and that situation just based on how you think about that situation. So again, it goes back to what I was just saying about the pandemic being like the worst thing ever or the best thing ever. This forced quarantine or shelter in place right now could be the best thing ever. It could make you focus on and really pay attention to the lack of self-care, which is super uncomfortable. And you want to go to all those different things that soothe you because you're feeling uncomfortable. And that makes sense. But it's really important if you're struggling with self-care to kind of remember that you feeling good and you working on you and you working on changing your thoughts about yourself doesn't mean that the other people in your life have to feel bad. It's not an if-then. They're not related. How you feel about yourself has nothing to do with other people. It's not their business. It's important to remember that when it comes to self-care, because a lot of times we talk about the permission for self-care. And a lot of people, that I've talked to, and some of these people on the virtual meeting that we went to, we're talking about feeling an outside pressure to do for everyone else. And then that inevitably leads to the lack of self-care. And again, this is all about taking care of you. Don't let what you think others need from you prevent you from giving to yourself. And if you're not good at that, if you're not good at giving to yourself or recognizing when you need absolute me time or, you need to do some exercising or some journaling or some relaxing, whatever it is, if you're not good at spotting that, the best thing you can do is just start. Just take action. Even if you don't feel like it, because you'll start to train yourself to do that behavior even when it's not sexy and motivating and feeling good. And it's been particularly difficult to attend to self-care in the midst of this coronavirus and the political climate and, this unrest in our culture and our society and everything that's happened over the last couple of months. It's really forced everyone to prioritize and to live with boredom. While life is extremely different for everybody, you still have the same power you had before the pandemic to control the way your life goes, to do the things that make you feel good. And if you cannot find what those things are, just get back to your basic routine. Get up at the same time every day. Make a shower a priority and getting dressed a priority. You can be casual and comfortable, but let's get back into that habit because there's so much involved in that small ritual of showering and brushing your teeth and bathing. And that's a very small habit of self-care, basic self-care. And when you're depressed and you're not feeling like it, that's exactly when you should get your butt up, get into the shower, take your time with it. Something that was brought up during our virtual meeting was someone had told a story about a traditional Japanese bathhouse for ladies. Not the sexy time kind, but just a traditional bathhouse where her experience was she's an American and she had gone to Japan and had participated in this incredible bathing ceremony. And the whole thing was, you go in and it's like a gym and like you shower first and then you go soak in these healing tubs. And she said she was one of like 2 or 3 other Americans there. And she said, we just like washed our bodies real quick to go, and recognized that the Japanese women and the people who were there, that's where they're from, that's like this is a part of their culture, had barely even started scrubbing their bodies and washing their bodies by the time the Americans had already been done and ready to go and get to the thing. And what she said she recognized was that it was extremely obvious that Americans just weren't conditioned or taught to take the time in that ritual of bathing, to love the body. And I know I did an episode called Shower Power where I talk about, dancing in the shower, building up your energy. If you're a fan of Tony Robbins, his whole philosophy is about getting into a better state, elevating your mental state. And how you do that is you have to use your body to get your energy to rise up, and that will help your mental health. And so he talks about anything you can do to get you out of that funk. Jump up, do some jumping jacks, run around the house naked, take time in the shower and really love on your body, and use those habits to help better the relationship with yourself. Because again, self-care is not just about doing nice things or buying nice things for yourself. It's about developing a real, genuine love for yourself. And there are so many incredible benefits once you really make that the priority. So utilize this time during the COVID shutdown to really focus in on you, what's important to you, what you want to do with your time, and really make that the priority. Shut everything else out. And sometimes that means you have to step up against confrontation, which is no fun. We talked about that a lot in our virtual meeting. The difficulties when you start to assert yourself and say, hey, my self-care is important. I need time for it. I cannot do XYZ that was previously expected of me because I need to start this routine. I need to make this a priority. And then you just hold to it. You stick to it until the family gets it. As you're working with that, as you're working with drawing these boundaries, standing up for yourself, making what you want to do the priority, you're going to fail. And that's okay, because failure means you're getting closer to success. You have to fail 1,000 times to get it right once. And then once you get it right, you know how to get it right. And that was worth all the time you spent failing. And that's how we get to another level, a better level. That's how we make our relationship with ourselves more beneficial, because we've failed through all these different tries to love ourselves and all these different failures of making ourselves a priority or getting that passion project that we just so desperately want to do done. You have to fail a million times. You have to procrastinate. You have to give up. You have to really go through that whole cycle until you finally get to the place where you just say, this is no longer a non-negotiable. This is now the standard for my life. And you make that decision, whatever that is for you. But you've got to recognize first how much you don't love yourself and how shitty you are to yourself. You have to give that its moment in the sun. You have to expose it. And you have to admit how damaging that has been for you. There's a mourning that takes place when you start really making self-care the priority. You start to feel like crap, that you've been treating yourself like garbage for so long, and that taking care of yourself feels so foreign and so unlike what you've been doing. You know, my favorite analogy of this whole, to bring this all into perspective, is, plants. Plants grow faster and better when we talk to them, when we sing to them, when we give them names. Imagine how much damage or how much good you could be doing